Welcome to Borderline Furniture, project number 42 for the Thrift Flip Challenge, hosted by Kat at Owling Dog Design, Darlene at DIYs by Dar, Crystal at The Crafty Creech, and Lavon at Statement Designs, all part of the Flippin Bunch. And for those who've asked, how can I pick the winner? Just text your vote between February 23rd and 1 March 2025. And if you're voting for me, it's Borderline Furniture. So on with the project. In this Thrift Flip Challenge, the furniture find investment is $40 or less. Mine was a dumpster dive, so my investment was $0. This is a 1940s, 1950s Philco radio that's seen better days. As you can see, the finish is failing, the cabinet has some damage, and the electronics are completely outdated. So for this little radio, it's demo day. And in project number 2, I did a radio cabinet. That demo took me half a day. Fortunately, this one is going to go much faster. Well, this little knob didn't want to give up the ghost. Well, hello, Miss Oakley. There, how do you like me now, little knob? I actually have 2 other radio cabinets, and in all 3 cases for these radios, somebody asked me, are you going to fix the electronics inside of this and make it new again? And I'm going to say, no, I am not. In fact, I wouldn't even plug this one in. It's a complete fire hazard. But what if I traded this mess for some solid-state technology, including Bluetooth or MP3 input? And what if I scrapped this old speaker and replaced it with more compact or even wireless speakers? And what if I open the front of this and put a couple of shelves in it? Well, Oakley likes it. So this is what we have after a couple hours of work. I had to enlist the help of my BFF to get those center braces out. I worked on it for 30 and he got them out in 5. I always thoroughly clean all of my projects prior to adding any top coat. Besides, if you don't clean it, that's kind of gross. And why am I cleaning it inside? Because it's like 20 degrees out there. Time to remove this failing finish. And then what I find amazes me. This whole time I thought, wow, what a really cool inlay. I wonder how I can maximize the look of the top of this cabinet. And then I find out it's just paint. While the Surf Prep sander is really excellent for contoured surfaces, I had to be really careful not to sand off the details while trying to remove the finish. I saved this top piece from Project 36 thinking that maybe I could use it someday, and today's the day. I'm going to cut this down and make it into a shelf. The base of this stereo cabinet never had a shelf, so I had to add some wood supports. Again, I think these are recycled from Project 36. The paint hype is chalk paint, all-in-one paint, paint with primer. You can just paint it right on any wood surface. I'm sorry, I just like to prime first. I'd like to give my paint the best opportunity to stick. I'm a first-time user of Vintage Market paint, and the color is Raven. This is a chalk paint, and this paint dries harder than what I'm used to for a chalk paint, if that makes any sense. So I'm really in a time crunch today. When I woke up this morning, it was about 36 degrees. It's going to warm up to a high of 64 around 11 o'clock, and then the temperature's going to drop again. And at noon, the wind is supposed to pick up. So I'm really trying to get this painted and sealed before the weather kicks in. Have you priced hardwood lately? It's very expensive, so I'll be using this old table leaf as part of this project. It's a little bit warped and really scratched, so I'm going to go ahead and plane it. I'm working on the front piece where the stereo mounts to. I don't have a lot of margin for error here, so I'm hoping for the best. I also don't have any special tools for my router, so I'm going to do a makeshift and I hope it works. I just used the jigsaw to get a rough cut. And for the finished edges, I'm going to use the router. Right now I'm just taking the router bit to the very edge of my cut on both sides of each square. It's hard to explain, but when you see it, maybe it'll make a little more sense. But I'm going to align a board, and then I'm going to run the edge of that router right along that board. Woo, success! The first cut worked, and so I'm going to finish the other 3 sides. Just using a file to square these edges, and then it's time for sanding and stain. This is my homemade stain that I made from using Odie's oil and Cornwall color corrector. I featured this in the Flippin Friends challenge this summer. I'm using the same color for the 3 spindles that go on the front. Now that the stain is dry, I'm going to apply Odie's oil. This is like a sugar scrub to me, and you apply it and rub it in, let it sit about 15 minutes and rub it off. Odie's oil website says that you need to buff it to a shine, but if you do not use a very fine sandpaper, you are not going to get a shine. And in this case, I only went to 400 grit, and that just was not enough. And while the surface appears very shiny now, that Odie's oil is going to soak up into the wood, and it's going to give it a raw wood appearance. But don't let that fool you. Odie's oil is there, and it's protecting that surface. The holes were not supposed to go on the bottom, they were supposed to go on the top, and I have just ruined this piece of wood. Since I don't have time or wood to do this part over again, I'm going to use an aluminum strip to cover up those holes. That aluminum strip actually becomes a happy accident once we get this thing put together. I was really surprised at how it tied together the look. Right now, I am just setting the front piece onto the shelf that's going to hold the stereo. And here's a view from the side and how it's all bolted together. Before I set the electronics, I have to put these 3 braces back in because if I don't, I won't be able to get to the screw holes that hold them in place. None of those 3 braces wanted to play nice, and I didn't record that. But it's coming down to the wire, and I'm fighting with the braces. I've already put a hole in the wrong spot. And next, I'm going to fight with the shelf. The stereo shelf goes in perfectly, and then when I'm putting in the final screw, one of the supports cracks, and it cracks so bad that I have to replace it. I'm wondering, is Mercury in retrograde? After a few minor adjustments, the second shelf goes in with relative ease, and I secure it using L-brackets. And finally, it's time for the back. I'm using some glass brackets or brackets that are used to hold glass in place so that the back can be easily removed if the speakers need to be changed out. Feeding the power cable through the back is the last step. Remember what this radio looked like when I saved it from the landfill? And now, here is the final reveal. been watching the Thrift Flip Challenge hosted by the Flippin Bunch. Remember, for this challenge, the audience gets to determine the winner, so please text before 1 March. This concludes Project 42. Please check out the playlist, and as always, thanks for watching!